Hi, everyone. And Adam, I really want to thank you for helping us to host this today. Without NOCoE support, this might not be as successful as some of the other events. So appreciate you. I appreciate NOCoE. You guys do great work. As Adam mentioned, I do want to reiterate, if you guys are interested in checking out any of these other road weather spotlight webinars or any other webinar that our team puts on, go ahead to NOCoE's websites and look at their calendar of events. Today, as Adam mentioned, we're going to be covering the hurricane forecast for 2024 and the total solar eclipse review. All right, and my name is Jeremy McGuffey. I serve as the Road Weather Program Manager at the Federal Highway Administration's Office of Operations. Go to the next slide. Before we get started, though, I do have to throw these disclaimers up here. I'll read through them real quick. It's just general disclaimer information. Essentially, it says this presentation was created and is being co-presented by both the Federal Highway Administration and an outside entity. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are the presenters and do not necessarily reflect those of FHWA or the U.S. Department of Transportation. The contents do not necessarily reflect the official policy of the U.S. DOT. The U.S. government does not endorse products or manufacturers. Trademarks or manufacturer's name appear in this presentation only because they are considered essential to the objective of the presentation. They are included for informational purposes only and are not intended to reflect a preference, approval, or endorsement of any one product or entity. Except for the statutes and regulations cited, the contents of this presentation do not have the force and effect of law and are not meant to bind the states or the public in any way. This presentation is intended only to provide information regarding existing requirements under the law or agency's policies. So just a brief overview of what we're going to be covering today. As we mentioned, it's a combination of both hurricane and the total solar eclipse. So we have Mike McClelland here from Federal Highway Administration. He's going to be covering the 2024 hurricane outlook and also give you kind of an overview of what the emergency ops team at Federal Highway Administration does. Then we'll move into the total solar eclipse review itself. We'll give you a perspective from Federal Highway Administration, and then we'll move over to Team Indiana. Purdue University is going to be doing kind of a national mobility analysis, and Indiana DOT is going to give their perspective on what they observed and some of the preparation activities that they did as well. And then lastly, we'll come back and I'll do an update for the program here at Federal Highway Administration and some future activities that we have going on. So I'm going to jump into the total solar eclipse review. I might have to speed things up a little bit just to get us back on track, so bear with me here. As I mentioned before, I'm Jeremy McGuffey. I'm with the Federal Highway Administration's Road Weather Management Program. I'm also here today representing Planned Special Events just for the sake of the total solar eclipse and possibly some of the future activities that we have planned. And today I'm going to be covering kind of a lead up to the solar eclipse and then some of the outcomes of the solar eclipse itself. To begin talking about the 2024 solar eclipse, we have to kind of go back in time to 2017 during the last major total solar eclipse. That provided us a lot of information. It provided us a great foundation for planning for this year's event. There was a lot of stuff that we learned and developed into best practices that we implemented, going into this 2024 eclipse event. And I think that it paid off. Some of these, and I'm not going to touch on each of these bullet points individually. You can read through them. I try not to read verbatim. Some of the major ones, though, was messaging. The sooner we noticed that states were getting messages out to the public regarding, best places to park and getting to the event site early and leaving a little bit later, those really paid off. It gave people an idea of what to expect and also some peace of mind because they understood that there was some planning involved in this event. They understood that there was going to be a lot of people out there on the road. And here in a little bit, I'll talk about kind of the differences between the two events that pose some challenges as well. But getting messages out to the public, and there was a lot of websites that dedicated themselves to it, a lot of groups that dedicated themselves to it. that paid off dividends. The other one that we learned about, obviously, was weather. With many planned special events, it's not as big of a deal. But when you are participating in an event that relies on good seeing conditions, obviously, cloudiness or rain can impact folks' willingness to participate in a certain area. And oftentimes you'll find that people will pack up and move if they see the forecast is showing there might be clouds in the area that they're going to be at. So weather plays a huge role in that, and that was a lesson learned as well. Something that you might not think about is the border crossings. Something that is much different than other planned special events, and even the 2017 eclipse, was that this one started in Mexico and came into the U.S. through Texas and exited through Canada near Maine. So you have to consider that there's going to be people traveling across borders, not just states, but also countries, to reach those prime viewing spots. Okay. So as I mentioned, this one was unique in just the path that it took, right? It traveled through Mexico, entered through the southern U.S. In Texas, and exited through Maine and into Canada, the Newfoundland area. It passed through the majority of 13 states there. It might have touched a few more, but the path of totality was quite wide. The big difference, though, if you're looking at the 2017 versus 2024 eclipse, was that it passed over many more densely populated areas. You starting down in Texas and going up to the northeast there were many areas that were densely populated or near regional population centers. So there were many more people that were either located directly in the path or within a very quick drive or short drive to the path. And that led to an increase in attendance, over the 2017 eclipse. So from the 2017, a lot of information was shared as far as what was learned and best practices. We covered a little bit of it early on here. That was all shared and to these new state DOTs that were experiencing this for the first time. They started a lot of this stuff earlier than what was done in 2017, just based on what they heard anecdotally. One of the biggest ones was involving all the necessary stakeholders. You learn this from participating in planned special events, is that it pays off to involve everyone that you can, even the smaller partners that you may not necessarily think of. With the solar eclipse, for example, some of the stakeholders involved, especially at the state level, might be the National Weather Service, first responders, perhaps, local and state public agencies, nearly every local and public state agency, federal stakeholders, FHWA is involved there, FEMA, DHS, non-governmental organizations. There's a lot of those involved. Third-party data providers. You can only imagine how many folks need to be involved to get the good information out to the motoring public. Law enforcement, construction and maintenance staff, contractors, trucking companies. The list is endless. But making sure that you involve all those people from the beginning and early on can really pay off when it comes to planning. As I mentioned, also, you have to plan for those day of impacts, the wild cards that it might get thrown at you. Those could be weather, traffic, natural or man-made emergencies. One of the training exercises that we did was for perhaps, EVs. What if there's a long line of cars and an electric vehicle breaks down and catches fire? How are you going to get emergency services to those vehicles? So there's a lot of scenarios that could go wrong that you have to think about. And then also, as managed, communicating early and often to the public. There's so many different platforms that you can put a message out on. It's just about getting the right message to as many people as possible. FHWA played a pretty central role in making sure that the state DOTs were talking with one another, and also some of the local agencies that were involved. It's all about sharing information, making sure that folks aren't working in silos. As I mentioned early on, the eclipse planning doesn't, and the eclipse itself, it doesn't end at borders. We had folks that were coming across the international borders. We had people that were crossing state borders. So making sure that everybody's on board and have similar plans is extremely important. So activity one that we focused on, I'll go through a couple of these, but activity one was just engaging with external entities and producing some outreach materials or gathering outreach materials. Some of these involved getting materials that were put together from the after actions and lessons learned of 2017. There were some presentations, specifically Kentucky DOT did some great after actions. You can still find those online that referenced lessons learned. Kentucky experienced some crowding in some very rural cities and towns, just from the influx of people traveling in, and it helped educate us better on how to deal with that. Activity two was identification and compilation of those solar eclipse resources. Outside of the state DOTs, there were a number of nonprofits and private organizations and universities that were putting together information on the solar eclipse. NASA had a page dedicated to it, so we partnered with them. It was all about getting all of the good resources that we could well before the event itself, and making them available to stakeholders. Activity three for us was putting together a dedicated solar eclipse webpage. And this webpage is still available. If you go to the operations website at fhwa.dot.gov, navigate to the traffic incident management page, you'll find the eclipse page there, and it still has all of our preparation information, a message from our administrator. We were fully on board with this. We were making sure that we got as much information out as possible. That stuff will still be there. This isn't going to be our last eclipse. It might be the last for a while, but this stuff, the idea is that we'll continue building on these lessons learned and put them in a one-stop shop. Activity four was performing a Total Solar Eclipse webinar in conjunction with NOCoE, very similar to what we did today. We had a webinar that helped, we got a bunch of stakeholders involved, including NITEC up in, the New York to Canada border crossing. We had the city of Buffalo. We had a number of state DOTs participating and shared their perspectives on what they're planning and what they expect. This really helped to educate some of the agencies out there who maybe didn't have a good idea of what they were going to be doing, or maybe they may have been on the fence about how they were going to respond to the eclipse. This was actually a very popular webinar. We had 700 total views and 500 unique participants during that webinar. There's a recording available. If you go to NOCoE's website, you'll find the recording there, but also we have a link in the slides here. It's on YouTube. So if you're interested in hearing from some of the stakeholders and how they were preparing for the eclipse, feel free to check that out. Activity five was almost immediately a follow-up. We did an in-person peer exchange in St. Louis, Missouri. There were 32 participants attending from 10 state DOTs that were impacted by that were going to be affected by the 2024 solar eclipse, plus some FHWA staff supporting this, as well as 3 local agencies and the National Weather Service. And as mentioned, the attendees presented on some agency approaches and how they were planning and preparing for the eclipse. So preliminary findings of the eclipse are, they're pretty similar to what we saw in 2017 in terms of, yes, we did know that there were going to be impacts to traffic. There were going to be backups and queues. No matter how many lanes you have on the highway, there's always going to be traffic when you have a large event like that, where everybody's trying to get to the same place at the same time and then also leave the same place at the same time. That's to be expected. But I do think that we found it to be a little bit more successful as far as getting messaging out to the public and getting people to the event sooner rather than later, and getting them home sooner rather than later. There was a lot of information that was shared between the state DOTs. There was a lot of collaboration. I think that this was also very successful. There was a lot of state-to-state talking and cross-border collaboration prior to the event and during the event, as well as how we were getting the messages out to travelers through 511 systems. And then as well as the forecast, something that we did notice that going into this, and something that we kind of anticipated was that we weren't going to have 100% clear skies. It's hard to get that as much as we prayed for it, but there were some areas that had cloud coverage, and we did notice that there were some folks that traveled outside of their originally planned area to get to areas with clear skies, and that obviously can present new challenges and complicate things. So these graphics here show some of the most impacted roadways. The data that I'm showing you for the most part is going to be from the National Performance Management Research data set at the DOT. The graphic on the left there is going to be Google Maps. As we go through this, you'll see the source at the bottom, but most of it's going to be coming from the NPM RDS. As you see, there was quite a few segments that were significantly impacted along the path of totality there. That's to be expected. The information that we pulled also queried not only the 2 Mondays following the eclipse, but also the 2 Mondays after the eclipse. It gave us an idea of what that baseline was. That way we could understand any impacts going into the eclipse. So as I mentioned, we pulled information for the 2 Mondays before and the 2 Mondays after. What we found was that the average speeds on those most impacted roadways, those segments that I just showed you, were on average 24.2 miles per hour slower the day of the event, as opposed to the average the Mondays prior and the Mondays after the event. So that's a significant drop, but you also have to consider the millions of people that either lived in the areas or drove to the event sites, that were on the roads those days. If you look at our network as a whole, the average, the Mondays before and the Mondays after, it really wasn't that much different. The speeds the day of the eclipse on the entire interstate network were only 4 miles per hour slower the day of the event, as opposed to those Mondays before and after. So as I mentioned, all of this stuff leads up to future events and future plan special events planning. The solar eclipse kind of gave us an idea of what the payoffs from the 2017 eclipse would bring, and it gave us some more of a solid foundation going into some of these future activities. I have these listed up here. The 2026 World Cup is it's coming up. There's already a lot of planning underway. There's going to be a lot of people traveling for that. There's going to be a lot of international travel for that. And that's going to have a regional impact, as well as the 2028 Olympics. Both of those events are being looked at right now, and we're actively participating in the planning for those and making sure that those go off without any issues. On top of all of that, we're going to be putting out some documentation and some reports as far as the 2024 solar eclipse. We're doing a case study to document impacts and agency activities, some of the stuff that I just talked about. And then we're also going to be putting together a final report that kind of expands on the case study, and it documents our outreach campaign. It's also going to have anecdotes and statistics and analysis of what the states dealt with and what they observed during the eclipse. If you have any information that you'd like to share with us about the eclipse, or lessons learned, pictures, anything at all, feel free to contact us. The contact will actually be David Johnson. He is the Managing Disruptions to Operations team lead, which involves traffic incident management, road weather management, and work zone management. Appreciate it. Yeah, also continue putting questions in the Q&A. We can always answer those in the chat pod if necessary. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to wrap things up with just some updates and closing remarks from the FHWA side of things. there's a lot going on here. So I always try and call out, the resources that we have available. Just the road weather management team alone, we put together a lot of tools and guides and fact sheets. But here's some recent ones that we've put out. Anything that from our climate resilience risk assessment tool and guide that we're working on, all the way to automated vehicles in adverse weather. We did some testing of some automated vehicles in a variety of conditions on a test track, and that is the final report that shows how those performed and provides maybe some insight into next steps. If you go to the road weather management page under the ops.fhwa.dot.gov, you'll find all of these and many more. We're always putting out good information. Again, if you know me, I'm always pushing grant opportunities. There's a lot of money that gets left on the table every year, and there's a lot of grant opportunities out there. There's no reason why, if you're a public agency, that you can't apply for some of these. Just read through the NOFOs, or the Notice of Funding Opportunities, to understand what those grant opportunities are about and perhaps how they might fit into your operations. One of them that we're focused on right now is the SMART grant. It's strengthening mobility and revolutionizing transportation. This one has quite a bit of money. I can't remember the dollar amount, but there's several $millions per project that they're funding. There's going to be two phases. One is kind of a prototyping, and then the second is a demonstration phase. And there's funding for both of those phases. As mentioned there at the bottom, the city of Fort Worth, Texas was awarded an FY23 Smart Stage 1 Planning and Prototyping Grant to deploy a network of ground, low altitude, and roadway sensors for micro weather modeling to improve users of the Fort Worth Smart Port. And again, too, this is not just limited to highways. This can apply to ports, airports, transit, any mode of transportation. So I encourage you to go to that website there on the screen and check it out. This is administered by the US DOT. It's not an FHWA grant. Grant opportunity number 2 that we're pushing is the Accelerating Innovation Deployment Demonstration Program, also known as AID. This is an FHWA grant. The mission there, or at least the goal, is to accelerate the implementation and adoption of innovation in highway transportation. There's been a number of road weather related projects that have been funded using this. Specifically there at the bottom is Connecticut DOT. They implemented in their management system using global positioning system, or GPS AVL units, to support the restructuring of the agency's response to road weather related events. And then New Jersey, they had a weather savvy roads pilot, which is one of our programs that we push to remotely provide real-time information of road maintenance fleet to traffic management centers. That's just 2 of the grant opportunities. There's many more out there. And just keep an eye on the US DOT grants page. And as those opportunities come open, some of them are recurring and they'll occur at specific times of the year. Those will get posted on there, along with what it takes to apply and how much you can potentially get from those. As far as new events that are coming up, I do want to call out our big one. This is our annual stakeholder meeting for 2024. It's going to be occurring September 10th and September 11th in New Orleans, Louisiana. Invitation, it's open to anyone who's interested to attend, but FHWA specifically will reimburse up to 3 staff members per state to attend. So if you're interested in attending and seeing presentations on any range of road weather related topics, whether it's winter weather as has been mentioned here, or even tropical weather that we covered earlier in the presentation, anything's going to be covered. We have a lot of great stuff that's going to be packed into those 2 days. So just reach out to either myself or David Johnson, if you're interested, and we'll get you some information. And then lastly, I think Adam mentioned this at the top of the meeting, but this road weather spotlight series that we're doing today is recurring. We're trying to do them every 2 months. The next one's going to take place on September 4th, 2024, from 1 to 2:30 p.m. And the topic's going to be kind of preparing for the winter weather season. We're still working out some of the details on that, but you can go ahead and register. And I think Adam's going to put that link in the chat there. So again, if you're interested in attending these, we're going to cover any range of topics during this Spotlight webinar series. And I want to thank NOCoE again for hosting it. It's been a big help for us. And that's it. Thank you for joining us today. We covered quite a bit today, and I know that it was a very short amount of time to cover all of the information that we covered. So if you're interested in any of the topics that we talked about today, or getting to know more about planned special events or road weather management within FHWA, please reach out to us. David's contact information is on there. He's our team leader here in the Office of Operations. You can subscribe to our program updates page there. You'll get newsletters, you'll get updates on what's happening. And then also subscribe to NOCoE. As I mentioned, they're pretty instrumental in getting a lot of the webinars that we do and a lot of the content that we put together out to folks that are not just the normal, core users. So feel free to register for all that stuff. I really want to thank our presenters today for Team Indiana, Mike, Darcy, Rahul, Jiraj. You guys did a great job putting all that stuff together and showcasing, how Indiana planned for the event and what some of the outcomes were and some of the observations. I think that was really insightful. Mike McClelland with FHWA, I appreciate you showing what you've been working on in the background. I know some of these people who are the road weather practitioners may not see as much of that stuff, but I'm hoping that maybe it sparked some interest, and maybe we'll get some people that are interested in hurricane response, hurricane prep, and maybe you'll get some people reaching out to you. So I appreciate all of the presenters. I appreciate NOCoE, and thank you guys who attended, everyone who sat through the presentation today, for your time. That's what keeps us going, is getting good information out to folks who are really wanting it. So with that said, I think we are done, and I will let you guys go. Thank you.